Ever thought of a paintbrush as a weapon? Or a sculpture as a tool for conquest? It sounds kind of wild, but that's pretty much exactly what happened in the Philippines. For over 300 years, Spain didn't just conquer with swords, it conquered with images, using art to literally reshape an entire culture. So let's dig into how they pulled it off.
Okay, so picture this. The Spanish arrive in the Philippines, and they're not just facing warriors. They're up against a wall of languages. I mean, the archipelago was this incredible tapestry of hundreds of different dialects. So how could this small group of colonizers possibly impose their religion, their authority, when they couldn't even talk to most people? It was a huge strategic problem.
So what they do? Well, their solution was to just bypass words entirely. If you can't speak to people, you show them. They turn to the one language that everyone understands, art. Images of power, faith, and authority, those could communicate across any language barrier. And they became Spain's most effective tool for cultural conversion.
So yeah, their answer to this language problem wasn't a bigger army, it was a really smart, calculated visual strategy. It was designed to do three things: impress, instruct, and intimidate.
And this strategy was pretty comprehensive. First, you've got the shock and awe, the intimidating sight of these massive naval ships just projecting raw power. Then there was the more subtle stuff like dazzling people with glittering European jewelry, a display of wealth and, refined taste. But the real heart of the strategy was the art itself, these beautiful paintings and sculptures that could translate really complex Catholic ideas into a visual story that anybody could understand.
Right, so to control the message, you've got to control the artists. And this meant introducing a brand new system of patronage and control that would completely change how art was made in the Philippines, forever.
And you can see just how big this shift was, right here. Before the Spanish, art was all about the community. It was made for the tribe, used in sacred rituals. But under the Spanish, whoa, totally different ballgame. Art suddenly became a profession. Artists were now commissioned and paid, and their new boss was the Catholic Church.
This new system had a name, patronage. And basically it just meant that a wealthy power, in this case the church, would pay artists to create very specific works. For the first time ever, an artist's survival wasn't tied to the needs of their community, but to the demands of a powerful client.
And, with patronage came control, a lot of control. The church enforced its vision through censorship. The friars were like the ultimate art critics. They would review every single piece of art, and anything they thought was inappropriate or rebellious or even just plain ugly was condemned. This made sure every single brushstroke served the colonial mission.
So, we've talked about the why and the how, the system of control. Now let's get into the what. How did this actually change the art itself? Let's take a look at the transformation in painting, sculpture, and even architecture.
Painting, for example, basically became a textbook for religious instruction. Spanish friars taught local artisans all these Western styles, but not for self-expression, not at all. It had a very clear job to do: decorate the new churches and visually tell the stories of the Bible.
So the themes you'd see were, well, pretty much exclusively religious. Christ, the Virgin Mary, the saints, you get the idea. But here's a really clever visual trick they used to reinforce the new power structure: hierarchy of scale. The most important figure, usually Jesus, was always painted bigger than everyone else. It's a simple but super powerful visual message. This is who's in charge now.
And this wasn't all just anonymous work. We have actual names, like Joseph Luciano Dons. He's one of the first known Filipino painters from this era. Commissioned by the friars, his work in the Paye Church shows a local artisan adapting, mastering these Western styles to serve this whole new religious order.
Now, the centerpiece of these new churches, it was something called a retablo. And these things were incredible, just jaw-droppingly ornate altarpieces filled with paintings and sculptures. The whole elaborate dramatic style is classic European Baroque, imported directly from Spain to create this overwhelming sense of awe and grandeur.
Okay, so that's painting, but sculpture? Well, that's a whole different story. The transition there was almost seamless, and that's because Filipinos were already master carvers.
See, the Spanish didn't really have to teach carving. That skill was already there, deeply ingrained in the culture. All they had to do was give them a new list of subjects. So out went the indigenous deities, the anitos, and in their place, carvers were now making saints, apostles, and Christ figures. And these new icons filled the churches, but they also started popping up on small altars inside people's homes.
And just like with painting, we can put a name to this shift: Juan de los Santos, the earliest known Filipino sculptor. His work is a powerful testament to the incredible skill of local artisans and how they master these new, imported religious subjects.
And of course, all this incredible art needed a home, and that's where architecture comes in. Grand, Baroque-style churches, built of stone and brick, started rising up all across the islands. They literally dominated the landscape, becoming these permanent, unmissable symbols of Spanish faith and power.
All right, so after 3 centuries of this, you can imagine it left a pretty profound mark, an unmistakable legacy that's still visible all across the Philippines today.
Seriously, this wasn't just some fleeting trend. It's like the artistic DNA from this whole colonial period got woven right into the fabric of modern Filipino culture.
I mean, just listen to this quote. Until today, there are still small altarpieces or cabinets of saints found in Filipino homes. Think about that. That one single tradition, keeping small religious sculptures on home altars, is a direct living link right back to that initial strategy of replacing indigenous idols. It's history not in a museum, but in the family home.
Which leaves us with a really big complex question. This art was created with the intent to erase what came before. So what's the result of that process? Is it a vibrant, new, hybrid culture? Is it more like a deep cultural scar, or something else entirely? That's the complicated legacy left behind when art is used as a tool of conquest.